Hello and welcome. I am Ehin Akimio, and this is a one-on-one with One House. Today is indeed a very, very special show. So special because we will be digging into the current mood of the world as it is today. We're talking about, as the advertising implied, we're talking about how digital nomads are now in control of global economies. And to help us go through and understand not just the terminology, not just the idea behind it, not just the people behind it, but how it works. And you might be a digital nomad without really knowing that that is exactly who you are. To help me with that, we have a guest today. His name is Kess Fofah. He is currently our in-house business analyst. He will get to explain who he is, his specialty, and so much more as we proceed. Let me bring him on now. Hello, Kess. Hello, how are you doing?
Hello, hey, how are you doing today?
We're doing good. We're doing good. And I had done the brief intro, but perhaps one thing that you can do for us is maybe give us a deeper insight about who you are, and then let us know why you fit in this description as our in-house business analyst. So tell us something about Kess Fofah.
Okay, so my name is Kess, like you rightly said. I have a daytime job as a business analyst. Essentially, what I do is to look at processes for organizations or entire business models and see if there are areas that need to be modified so as to increase profitability. Why am I here? I'm currently pursuing a PhD in knowledge and innovation management, and that covers the whole space of knowledge economies, remote work, knowledge workers, and the whole gamut surrounding that area. So I guess that's what qualifies me to speak.
Okay, so let's just dig into. I think we have quite a lot to talk about when it comes to the digital nomad, and I'm quite aware that it is not a new terminology. It's been around for quite a while, for a couple of years at least. And for those who don't really understand what the concept is, who don't really understand what it really means, is it something that you can explain to us? Who is the digital nomad?
Yes, so it's simple. Oftentimes, you don't want to explain what something is. It's a compound word, digital and nomad. So you take, so basically, digital nomad is someone who has a nomadic lifestyle, but this way does his work while traveling from place to place. That means his work is not dependent on place, and essentially is able to communicate through do his work through information technology. That's why the digital comes there. So he can do his work, he can travel from place to place, location to location, or country to country specifically, but his work is not affected because through the instrument of information technology, through ICTs or digital technologies, he's able to do his work. So and most often than not, the host countries where they travel through is not where their work is. Their work is somewhere else, independent of where they travel to. So that's essentially what digital nomad is. But to understand digital nomads further, it's important to understand who a remote worker is, because digital nomads are essentially remote workers. And so a remote worker is someone who does not have to go to a place called work. Someone who has the maxim that says work is what I do, not work is not where I go to, or work is not where I am. So essentially, what is important is the work, not that you have to commute to a certain place to now say you are working, or you have to say, okay, I'm in a certain location. That means you are location independent and you don't have to go to work. So essentially, digital nomads are types of remote workers, but not all remote workers are digital nomads.
We had talked about the fact that the concept is not new. Is it something that we can trace how it started? How did it become such a would calling it a fad be one way to go? Is it fashion?
Okay. So the precursor to digital nomadism is remote work, and that started about 1974. Where the US government, IBM, decided to do some experiments with a few staff to see if they could work at it. And you should understand that digital nomadism does not exist without information technology.
Okay.
Because it's ICT or digital technology that enables you to be able to work without being in a location. So if you trace back when ICT started, then you can trace back where, remote work, digital nomads. But it used to be a concept that was for people that were elderly, people that were, retiring, that just wanted to go somewhere to chill or to relax. But in the last few years, the millennials, Gen Zs, because they don't want to retire before they start seeing the world, they decided that they're going to see the world and work at the same time. So the essence of, when Gen Z, so I'll see if I want to put a period to it, is when Gen Zs became of age to start working. So they're like, I'm not going to do this old school stuff, retire at 50 before I start seeing the world. I'm going to see the world right now while working. So they found ways to use digital technology. But in the last 2-3 years, because of COVID, there was skepticism about remote work, and COVID forced everybody in the world to work from home. So we saw it was possible. So people now use it. And after working from home, people didn't want to return back to work. So they use that to negotiate with their bosses to say, I did this work from home for 1 year and nothing happened. And so in essence, that got families closer. You had couples, spouses that were separated by location. So whoever is able to negotiate can negotiate with their boss and say, okay, I want to be closer to my family. And I also want to, that won't affect my work. And not just to work in the normal sense. People that have businesses that don't require them being around, people that have, that are able to work over the internet. But what's important is that there's digital technology to help in that process.
Okay. So besides the fact that you can take a holiday at the same time that you're working, is there any economic benefit to being a digital nomad?
Yes. So there are benefits for the digital nomad himself or herself. There are benefits for the host community, and there are benefits for the digital nomad's home country. Okay. So for digital nomads, of course, he has flexible time. If he earns in a higher currency, he could decide to go to where the standards of living are cheaper. So for instance, you have digital nomads living in the US and going to stay in Thailand or stay in Bali, Indonesia, where they get the same luxury, but at a cheaper cost. So they are living their lives without having to pay as much for it. Then how does the community how do they enjoy all of this? Of course, they are more like expatriates in those communities. And so they're able to help stimulate the local economy of those economies. Now, how does the host country benefit? When you take a country like Nigeria or developing countries, where even though we have a lot of migrants, but migrants don't forget home. So we have a lot of remittances going back to motherland, after earning. So that way you find out that everybody's able to earn. And in recent times, due to COVID, tourism has dropped in a lot of countries. So specific countries have now looked for ways to now, okay, this digital nomad, can we create a visa covered for digital nomad? They don't call it digital nomad visa, but a visa, target towards digital nomads to be able to stimulate the local economy. Because tourism, they don't have tourists, so they're trying to replace tourists with digital nomads. And of course, digital nomads stay longer, 6 months, 1 year. So they're trying to look for visas in that direction to be able to, because some countries without tourism, the old
not likely to survive.
Restaurants, hotels, and all of them, airlines are all struggling. So those are just some of the benefits.
Okay, so you mentioned Nigeria, for instance, and Africa. What is the fate of the digital nomad, remote worker, when it comes to African countries and the peculiar situations that most of them have to face?
Okay, so there's something called the Economies Passport Index. It qualifies passports on how powerful they are. By that, it means that passports that you have, that you don't need to have a prior visa before you move from country to country. In context, there are about 193 countries recognized by the United Nations, 195, 2 that are not actually part of the United Nations. And so in this index, you have number 1, 2, 3, that their passports can go to about 193, 191 countries, without prior visa. So, and if you look at that top 10 of those countries, you find out that most of them are Western countries. So it's easier to be a digital nomad if you're from the West.
Yes.
But in recent times, if you come from a developing country like Nigeria, your knowledge helps you to be able to bridge that gap, because you offer services that is recognized all over the world. You have a job that is able to, that you can offer the same quality that is needed in all parts of the world. So it makes it easy for you to migrate. Yes, your passport still limits you, you understand, but you could now have access to such programs like Digital Nomad visa programs or other forms of migration programs where you can now move. So you are now recognized as an expert, more like a multinational corporation. So I'll call them multinational individuals who are able to work across countries. So it's not just about relocation, like it's current fact now. It's about being able to establish yourself in multi countries, because of the value that you bring across the world, and you're not limited. So for yes, it's more difficult for someone from a developing country, but through your knowledge, through acquiring necessary skills, you're able to compete, and being able to compete is able to break some of those barriers. Of course, if you start as a remote worker, I have friends that work in Nigeria and earn in foreign currencies. They are recognized as experts even though they're here. If you're able to earn it the same way as your counterparts in other countries, because those are some of the things they look out for in those countries. Are you able to generate sometimes in $5,000 every month? So that doesn't look at color, doesn't look at where you're coming from. If you're an expert, you can generate that. You can show that you generated that over the last 6 months. You're likely to get a visa to qualify as a digital, nomad, in most of these countries.
Okay, so you've spoken a lot about the international scope of being a digital nomad mostly. Is it possible to have it localized? Is it something that you can move from, like in Nigeria, for instance, using Nigeria as an example again, state to state? Does the concept still follow through in that way?
Yeah, but yes, but originally digital nomads are mostly the examples of our digital nomads are for those that move from country to country.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean that you couldn't apply the same to move from location to location.
Okay.
And let's take Nigeria, for example. We can move freely within the ECOWAS states. On the English index, we could move to 45 countries without visa. And within the ECOWAS states, so you have Nigerians that decide to say, I don't want to work in Lagos, I want to work from Accra. You understand? So, you could do that. You could say, I'm not working from Lagos, I'm working from Abuja, I'm working from Ibadan. So that's possible. So it's not. So that way, some people say they don't like the lifestyle in Lagos is too busy. They want to stay in a more, suburban feel outside of Lagos. But it doesn't mean they can't have the opportunities in Lagos. Because the excuse we had before was that all opportunities were in Lagos, were in the city centers. But you could stay somewhere remotely, and work and do your work.
Okay. At the end of the day, how do you determine the level of productivity with, especially if you have you're digitally you're working remotely from a place like Bali or the Bahamas, for instance? How do you gauge productivity as a business owner, for instance?
Okay, so there are two types of remote workers, if I'm going to go, or two types of digital nomads. There are those that work for themselves.
Yep.
And there are those that work for others. So when you work for others, there are collaborative tools that you use to work with others. Slack, Microsoft Teams, and the rest of them. So essentially, it's not in those days you just clock into work. The way they judge your productivity is that you clocked in at 9 a.m. and you leave by 5 a.m. That way you work, but that's not work. The way you judge someone's productivity is by giving them work packages. So I'm using the project management terminology. So you have work breakdown structure, and those work breakdown is assigned to different people. So you have your own work package given to you by your project manager.
Okay.
Essentially, if you don't deliver on those projects, no one cares where you are. You understand? If you don't deliver on that, then that means you're not productive, and that means there's something wrong, with whatever. So no one cares where you are. What's important is that you have a task assigned to you, and you deliver on it, and you can deliver that digitally. So you do your work. You can work collaboratively with people. They need you to be available for a meeting. You're available. They need to contribute. They see what you're doing. It's not a case of I'm working, and it's quite transparent through technology if you are working or not, if you are productive or you're not productive.
Brilliant. We have a question for you here. It's from Blessing in Akimia. What is the long-term impact, though, of this new working style? Now that most remote workers have lost the transition of going to work or going home, what long-term impact will it have?
Okay, so,
I think that's a brilliant question. Yes.
So for every new concept, there are pros and there are cons. And as humans, as responsible humans, we have to be able to assess. I worked remotely all through 2020, and I realized that there was a blur between work time and family time.
Yeah.
But that, as an individual, you have to now be able to specifically to say, okay, I'm going to create time for each and everything that is important. So have that work-life balance, you know, and to be able to say, okay, this is what I have done. And so in responsible organizations, it's important to have that. So no one, if the truth of the matter is that your employer wants to take as much as they can from you if you allow them, if it's possible.
Yeah.
So it's left for you to be able to draw the line and say,
Mm-hmm.
I deliver. But before you could make such an assertion, you have to be known to have done your work properly. You can't be making an assertion like that when you've not even done your basic work. So you could have an argument that, boss, this is my time, and within this time, there's nothing you gave me to do that I've not delivered. There's no deliverable you expected of me that I've not delivered. For now, I have this to go and attend to certain issues. So it's a constant struggle. You know, some individuals are unable to differentiate their workaholics. You know, so it's important for us to be able to make that. And being a digital nomad is not compulsory.
Okay.
It's something you examine and you ask yourself: is this lifestyle okay for me? Do I like it? Do I not like it? Is it okay? How does it affect other members of my family or my community? Is this something I'm okay with? Is this something I want to do for a while? You know, and all of that. And you make your decision based on that. It's not something that it's not something that you just have to go into. You have to examine yourself and say, okay, what do you like? I've met a few friends that say they like structure. You know, they like structure, and they don't. That the digital nomad lifestyle that requires you being disciplined, self-disciplined, doesn't work for them. They like the structure of coming to work and being told what to do and all of that. They've been able to examine themselves and be able to decide that this is what works for them and this is what fits their personality. So it's just to be able to have options and okay, does this work? There are pros and cons here and there.
Okay, both of it.
Yeah.
So do you imagine a time when we're ever going to go back to? I mean, it's a situation where some people get used to it, and it's been known that some of the workers that have gone for at least for the past 2 years, that they have become accustomed to working remotely. And in certain societies where they are very used to not mixing with other people, do you think people will be comfortable going back to working in units or in groups? What would be the term for it? Working with physically with other people within the same environment.
Physical. Yes. So while I worked remotely, I missed the camaraderie of working within a group of people.
Okay.
Sometimes I remember the jokes of the past. Oh, I wish this guy was here. He normally cracks us off when we're tense at work. You know, this guy is there that makes us laugh and all of that. So you miss that. Sometimes you call people that are at work and say, what's happening? I'm missing out. I'm just here. I don't know the inside gist of what's going on. You know, but most importantly, also, there are benefits to working directly, from having a more full-time or more part-time work or more full-time work. For instance, a lot of remote work, there are not health benefits or retirement benefits and all of that. So those are considerations that people have to consider. Although there are full-time jobs that are also remote that have all these benefits. So these are some of the perks that. But as a society, we need to be able to look for ways to bring people out, look for events. For instance, we're getting to a generation where, like I said, the Gen Zs are the ones controlling and they want things. So they are mixing. They are having their social events. They're just not having it with their colleagues. They have their own friends outside of work. Yeah. Like I told you, some of them want to have these jobs along the beach, the fine beaches and all of that, or in mountains and do hiking. So they are having social events, but they are just not having social events with their co-workers. They want to have it with separate people, and they don't want to wait till when they are old to have those kind of. So for Gen Zs, I think they are most comfortable with it. I don't consider myself an old man, but it looks like I am.
Yeah.
So for us, we now have to begin to look at what's the effect on family dynamics and all of that.
Okay. So if you're just tuning in, if you're just joining us right now, you are watching One on One with One House, and I am talking with our in-house business analyst, Kess Fofah. There's another question. Blessing is really keen on this particular subject because I know her personally, so this is something that she is really involved in, especially now in this time of where the pandemic and so many changes have had to be made to fix yourself within the working life. She says, what about the impact on the economy? Office blocks now lie empty. City cafes, where most city workers will go for lunch, no longer required. Now not required. So how would you address that?
Okay, so um, that's a very good question. Um, so I'll take the word she used. Office blocks now lie empty. Those office blocks have to be repurposed. For instance, in England at the moment, in the UK, for instance, there's an
Yeah,
housing crisis, less residential homes, and we have housing blocks, office blocks that nobody is using.
yeah,
We need to start repurposing some of these buildings. You take Lagos, for instance, in Marina, you have so many skyscrapers that are empty. Nobody's using them. And there was a time I was bemoaning, I was angry that why are these things empty? They've been empty for over 10 years, over about a decade. They
yeah,
could be converted to residential apartments. But beyond residential apartments, an important aspect is to convert them to co-working spaces
mm,
where individuals who come in, have a desk, and work. So people want to be able to go to different locations to work. They just don't want to go to a particular location every time.
okay,
So you find, so when you see people work, digital nomads typically work from co-working spaces. They work from innovation hubs. They work from different places like that, different purpose. So where they meet different workers, not necessarily their own colleagues from their own firm. So some
mm,
of these office buildings should be repurposed for that purpose of co-working spaces or for residential apartments. So that way they are not line fallow. And okay, so because she mentioned that example as a specific example of the impact of the economy, that's why I'm
yeah,
addressing. If there are other areas where we look at, the impact on the economy, then I could also address that. For instance, I'll use this opportunity to chip in, like for instance in Lagos, um, you find out that the economy closes by 9 thereabouts, and we have a lot of people that are unemployed. And I often ask this question jokingly: if some of us went to work from 9 to 5 and some people were sleeping, not through their faults, through the fact that they were unemployed, why do we have to shut down? Why
yeah,
should the people that were sleeping during the daytime also be sleeping with people that went to work,
mm,
during the daytime? The people that slept during the daytime should go to work at night. You
yeah,
understand? So that way we're able to maximize the use of some of these buildings, and all of that. But for global for a digital nomad to exist well in society, there are certain things that are important. The question of security becomes important. The question of infrastructure, understand? Because as a digital nomad, you can't work in a place where you are scared of going out or you're scared of, so security is important. What is
mm,
also important is that the infrastructure, internet has to be top speed. You can't have, it has to be the same speed of internet that you have in your own country
yeah,
compared to where you are. You understand? Power has to be important. For instance, now I'm in Lagos now. I had to, before this started, I had to tell them to switch on my generator for the
okay,
duration because I didn't want to have blackouts while talking to you. You
mm,
understand? That should not
mm,
have been a concern. You
yeah.
understand? So
So,
after this interview
Kes,
with you, then I'll.
hold on a minute. Kes, hold on a minute. Okay, we'll get back to that right now. But before we continue, you are watching One on One with One House, and like I had said earlier, it's very important that this is the new platform where we're helping to showcase and sharing in the experience of those who are impact makers within our society. Now, help us, to continue to bring you really good content by subscribing to the channel on YouTube, on Facebook, and all the other uh, digital outlets that are available. Now, you were talking about power. You were talking about having the proper environment for it to succeed. Would you say that most African countries, because of all those things you mentioned, that they are losing out, that they are at a disadvantage?
So what in African countries, what we see as a problem is an opportunity for a businessman. You know, so things that are normal in developed countries are opportunities. So that's why we have a lot of co-working spaces.
Okay.
where they guarantee. So where part of the selling point is that you have power, you have internet, you know, you have a serene environment to work in, the security and all of that. So
Mm.
yes, there are problems in Africa, but like we normally say, Africa is the next frontier
Okay.
because of the problems, because problems and opportunity often lie side by side. So
Okay.
rather than look at it from the eyes of the problem, rather from the eyes of opportunities, an opportunity for someone to do something about
Yeah.
it and be able to. And some people are started, well, but it's difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult, especially because of the most important factor, government policy. So
Okay.
where we have a case, because once the government is willing, to do the right things, it's
When
easier to be able to.
when you say government policy, what do you mean?
Okay, so for instance, so we look at people that are willing to invest in certain sectors. There are issues of tax. There are issues of providing normal infrastructure that's that government is supposed to provide to help. Because at the end of the day, business can provide everything.
Yes.
And you have some cases in some African countries where the governments or officials of the states are deliberately going against some of the innovations that people bring in, and all of that. So those are issues that we have to deal with in Africa. Like I said, Africa is the next frontier. There are problems here, but those problems mean that there are opportunities here for growth.
Okay, brilliant. So here's what we're going to do. You're now part of this the One House family, so we're definitely going to have you back again to discuss so many other things, and then if you have more questions, more issues have arisen because of this conversation that we're having right now, please feel free to write to us, send us a message. And you can reach me here at onehouse.fi. Or how do we get across to you? Of course, we're going to leave all the descriptions and the contact information with the description on YouTube on this channel. Please remember to subscribe. And how can someone get across to you directly? Kess.
Yes, of course. So for now, I'm not so popular, so I still answer. I still check my DMs. So you can reach me on all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. So still Kess Fofah on all those platforms. So send me a message. I'll respond.
Okay.
Till the point comes where I need a virtual assistant. I'll still respond to messages.
Okay. Still, I'm sure a lot of messages, a lot of questions, more questions will be coming your way as we continue. But we will definitely be having you back to discuss more things. For instance, there's so many things to do with setting up businesses, managing businesses, and you are the in-house business analyst, and you can help a lot with all these kind of vitally important questions since you're currently still based in Nigeria, in Africa. So a big help. So Kess Fofah, thank you very much for being a part of today's show, and hopefully we will get you back real soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Harry, for having me.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And there you have it. We've just been talking with Kess, and what I would say is that it's been absolutely brilliant having him on. Now you can reach us right here on this channel. We'll be leaving all the contact information for you. If you want to get across to Kess, you can get across to him on all the digital platforms. Just Kess Fofah, and you can ask more detailed questions and he will definitely respond. And if there are other things that you would like to know from us, feel free to send a message. Also, remember to subscribe. This is One-on-One with One House. Until next time, we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.